Hi everybody, this is a review video of first graders, the Geography of USA. So here in the early 1800s, this new country's leadership still had little idea. It was thousands of miles from the South Sea or Pacific. So these 13 colonies, they declared independence from Britain and elected new president. And this new leadership still had little idea how big the rest of this territory will be. So using Indian trails, a few explorers for whom the word intrepid could have been coined had pushed through the Appalachians and reached the Mississippi. So there was these few explorers, brave explorers. They used Indian trail, right? So this trail, do you remember the meaning of the trail? So trail is a track or road. So using this Indian road, Indian track, few explorers for whom the word intrepid could have been coined. So the intrepid here. Do you guys remember the meaning of intrepid? Right. So here it means very brave, right? Very brave. And this word intrepid could have been coined. What about this coined mean? Coined? It means made, right? So this word intrepid, meaning the very brave, it could be made for these few explorers. It means that they were very brave people. So they used Indian Trail and pushed through the Appalachians. They went over to Appalachians and reached the Mississippi area. So here around this part, there's a Mississippi River area, right? So these explorers, they reached this Mississippi area, and there they thought they might find a waterway leading to the ocean, and thus joining up with a vast tract of land the Spanish had explored across the southern, western, and Pacific coastal regions, including what are now Texas and California. So when these explorers they arrived in the Mississippi area, they hoped that they can find a waterway leading up to the ocean, connected to the ocean area here. And also they want to find a huge territory. This huge territory, the Spanish, I guess Spanish explored before this American government explored here. The Spanish explored nowadays Texas and California. So these people hope to find this huge area and also the Pacific coast too. At this point, the fledgling USA was far from secure, and if it had been restricted to its then boundaries, would have struggled to become a great power. So here, at this point, it means this early 1800 is at this time the fledgling USA. So do you remember the meaning of the fledgling? It means struggling, right? Struggling. So struggling USA was far from secure, right? Far from secure. What does this mean? Far from secure. Right. It means like unstable, right? So USA at that time was still quite unstable. They were still at the early age of establishment of the country. So they were struggling and they were unstable. And if it had been restricted to its then boundaries, if these American government and citizens, if they were satisfied with these uh, boundaries that they have in the eastern coast, and if they stopped pushing to the westward, maybe they would have struggled to become a great power. This country might not be a great power as it is now if they stopped here in the eastern coast. Instead, they decided to push forward to westward, even though it's quite unstable and they still have to struggle. They just kept trying. Okay. So that's why now this country is quite a great power. And its citizens already had access to the Ohio River, just west of the Appalachians, but that led to the Mississippi, whose western bank was controlled by the French all the way down the city of Mexico. So these citizens, they access to Ohio River. So Ohio River is around here in the center. They had access to the Ohio River here, and just west of the Appalachians. So the west side of Appalachian, they had access to the Ohio River, and that Ohio River connected to the Mississippi River, and whose western bank was controlled by the French all the way down to the city of New Orleans. However, the French was controlling this area. So this gave the French command of the American trade heading out to the Old World from the Gulf of Mexico, as well as the vast territory to the west in what is now American heartland. So at this time, French government, they were controlling an area from including New Orleans and Mississippi and connected area to Rocky Mountains. So French was controlling this area. So American trade heading out to the Old World. Do you guys remember what Old World means? Old World. The Old World refers to Europe, right? Old World is Europe. And the Gulf of Mexico, right? Gulf of Mexico is ocean here, right? So the American trade go out to the Europe through Gulf of Mexico was controlled by French government. So Americans had to pay taxes to French government in order to do a trade through this New Orleans and Gulf of Mexico. So in 1802, a year after Thomas Jefferson assumed the presidency, he wrote, "There is on the globe one single spot, the possessor of which is our nature and habitual enemy. It is New Orleans." So Thomas Jefferson was the president, 1802, and he said his opinion that there is on this globe one single spot. He said there is a one area, and the possessor of which. So here, the which refers to one single spot, right? So the possessor of that one single spot becomes nature and habitual enemy. So whoever owns the area, it became maybe the really a biggest enemy to American government, and that area is New Orleans. So that's how much New Orleans is important for this American government. And moving on to the next page. So France was the possessor and the problem. So at this time, France possessed the New Orleans area, so France was the problem for American government. But the solution, unusually, was not warfare. This time, so in order to solve this problem, American government used quite unusual method. So in 1803, the United States simply bought control of the entire Louisiana territory from France. So American government paid money to France and they bought this Louisiana territory, 1803. And the land stretched from the Gulf of Mexico northwest up to the headwater of the tributaries of the Mississippi River in the Rocky Mountains. Before I forget, speaking of this year, this time don't worry about years. Okay, don't worry about numbers for your midterm exam. Okay, so many of the students might worry about that you have to memorize all the years of this historical event. No, don't worry about this year for this midterm exam. Okay, so the land stretched from the Gulf of Mexico northwest up to the headwaters of tributaries of Mississippi River in the Rocky Mountains. So the land, the territory that French government used to own was stretching from the Gulf of Mexico to the headwaters of the tributaries. So do you remember what the tributaries means? Tributary was the small rivers, right? Small rivers that's connected to the Mississippi River and which beginning in the Rocky Mountains. So French used to own the huge territory. Now they sold this territory, Louisiana territory, to American government. So the size of this Louisiana territory was an area equivalent in the size to modern day Spain, Italy, France, United Kingdom, and Germany combined. So Louisiana territory 1803 was so huge, so it's almost same size with 5 countries combined. Spain, Italy, France, United Kingdom, and Germany. And American government bought it from France. And with it came the Mississippi Basin, from which flow Americans' route to greatness. And in this area, Mississippi Basin area also were included. Now American government get to control Mississippi Basin area, and from which this Mississippi River, American greatness was like could begin. And at the stroke of a pen and the handing over of $15 million, Louisiana Purchase of 1803 doubled the size of the USA and gave it mastery over the greatest inland water transport route in the world. So in the stroke, at the stroke of a pen. So here, stroke means movement. So, at the movement of a pen means like contract or signature. With a contract and handing over of $15 million, Louisiana Purchase doubled the size of the USA. So now United States territory became twice as bigger than it used to be and gave a mastery over the greatest inland water transport route in the world. So mastery here means control. Right? So the American government now they have a control over the greatest inland water transport route. So what does this refer to? Do you remember? What does greatest inland water transport refer to? This is a Louisiana, right? I mean the Mississippi River. Mississippi River, okay? So now American government control over the Mississippi River. And as the American historians Henry Adams wrote, never did the United States get so much for so little. So Henry Adams mentioned that United States, they had a really great deal, great contract buying Louisiana territory for so cheap price. The greater Mississippi Basin has more miles of navigable river than the rest of the world put together. So can you imagine that the Mississippi Basin has more navigable river than the rest of the world river connected and combined together? You compare all the river from all over the world and connect them together and you compare the length with the Mississippi River. Mississippi is still longer than those rivers. Can you imagine how long that Mississippi is? And navigable means like peaceful and calm, right? Easy to navigate, right? And nowhere else are there so many rivers whose source is not in a highland and whose waters run so smoothly all the way to the ocean across vast distances. So the source of river, if you think about it, source of the river tend to located in a higher land, right? Say this is a mountain. And the source of the river, beginning of the river, naturally tend to begin from highland and it flow through to a lower land, eventually ending in the ocean, right? However, this Mississippi River, the source of Mississippi River is not located in the highland, not in a highland, but it still runs so smoothly, all the way, so long distance across the vast distance and to the ocean. It runs so smoothly, even though its source is not located in highland. The Mississippi, fed by much of the basin river system, begins near Minneapolis and ends 1,800 miles away in the Gulf of Mexico. So the Mississippi, fed by the river. So some of the students ask me a question, what does fed means? Here you can say the fed means like provided. So the Mississippi River is provided by much of the basin river system. There are so many small rivers connected to a Mississippi River, and these small rivers provide Mississippi with a lot of nutrition, a lot of water, a lot of fish. So Mississippi River become really nutritious and really abundant with all the resources inside. So Mississippi River begins near Minneapolis area. So the source of river begins from Minneapolis area and ends 1,800 miles away in the Gulf of Mexico. So it runs across the distance, across the country, and end in the Gulf of Mexico, running 1,800 miles. Do you remember the total distance from east coast to west coast of America? It was 3,000 miles from east to the west coast of the country. And the Mississippi runs 1,800 miles. It's more than half of this entire country. That's how big this Mississippi River is. So the rivers were the natural conduit for ever-increasing trade, leading to a great port, and all using waterborne craft, which was and is many times cheaper than road travel. So here, conduit. Conduit means passage. So Mississippi River is a natural passage for ever-increasing trade, leading to a great port, and all using waterborne craft. So craft, you can say your craft is your product. Your product, and waterborne maybe is like move. Maybe. So this waterborne crafting means that you make your product in your place and you move your product using the river and move your product, let's say, to a city of New Orleans, and you can sell your product to the foreign country. And it's many times cheaper than road travel. So let's say you are a CEO. You're a CEO of computer making company, and you produce your computers, and your factory, let's say, is located in Minneapolis area, and you can use Mississippi River and move your computers to the New Orleans and sell your product to the foreign country, which is cheaper. If you produce your computer in Minneapolis and move your product using the road travel, it will cost you more. You have to pay more of the expenses. But now, if you use the river, you can sell your product more cheaply to other countries. So the river is contributing the development of the economy. So now the Americans now had strategic geographical depth, a massive fertile land, and alternatives to the Atlantic port with which to conduct businesses. Now American has strategic depth, means they have a choice. They have a strategic choice. They have a strategic choice. So, for instance, they have a massive fertile land, they have a huge fertile land inside, and they have an alternatives to the Atlantic port. So, for America, the Atlantic Ocean and the port and the harbor located to the Atlantic side is the major route for America to do the trade with the foreign countries. But if something happens to this Atlantic port, America still can have alternatives. Alternative is the like second best, right? your uh, second best. So if something happened to Atlantic Port, you have an alternative. You can use a New Orleans, city of New Orleans, and still do the trade through the Gulf of Mexico with foreign countries. So you have alternatives to conduct business. So now America has a strategic choice. So they also had ever expanding route east to west, linking the east coast to new territory. So inland road, they are developing toward west side, and they are connecting east to west side and linking. So they are connecting the east coast and the new territory, which means the west coast. And then the river system flowing north to south to connect the dense, sparsely populated land with each other. And you have Mississippi River running from north to south and connecting the sparsely populated land. So sparsely here, do you remember the meaning? Sparsely means not crowded, right? Not crowded area. So river is connecting this sparsely populated land with each other, thus encouraging American to form as a single entity. Now the citizens start to have an idea, start to make an idea as a single entity. Now they start to believe, oh, this is a one single country, one single government. As the countries start to connect it more with each other. So there was now a sense that the nation would become a colossus, a continental power. So colossus, I told you, it means huge. So these people start to realize that this country will be really a huge continental power, right? So continent is a big piece of land, right? A big piece of land. So for instance, like America, America has a like North America, huge, and they have South America. So this entire country, entire land is called as a continent. So America is located in northern continent of American continent. That's why they called it a continental power. The country is located in continent. Okay. So they push onward, ever westward, but with an eye on the south and security of the jewel in the crown, the Mississippi. So American government and the citizens, they pushed onward, they pushed westward, developing the country to westward. However, they kept their eye, they pay attention to the jewel in the crown. Jewel in the crown means the most important area, right? The most important. They kept their eye on the Mississippi area. Okay, Mississippi is so important for entire country. Okay, so moving on to the Mississippi here. So by 1814, the British had gone and the French had given up on the Louisiana. So British government withdrawn from America and French sold the territory to American government. The trick now was to get the Spanish to go. Now they have to drive out the Spanish. And it wasn't too difficult. Fortunately, this was not too difficult. The Spanish were exhausted by the war in Europe against Napoleon. Americans were pushing the Seminole Indian nation into Spanish Florida, and Madrid knew that waves of settlers would be following. So apart from American situation, Spain had war. They had a war with France against Napoleon. So I guess the country was tired, exhausted. And Americans pushing the Seminole Indian nation. Seminole Indian nation refers to Spanish immigrant living in American territory. So they told these people, Spanish immigrant, hey, why don't you move to a Florida area? and the citizens, these Spanish immigrant, and agreed, so they moved to Florida. And Madrid is a Spanish government, right? So Madrid Spanish government knew the wave of settlers would be following. If many Spanish immigrants in America, they moved to Florida, the new immigrant from Spain would follow to the Florida area. Spanish government knew that, so it seems that they agreed, and Spanish people moved to the Florida area. And 1819, the Spanish ceded Florida to the USA, and with it, massive amount of territory. So ceded means give up, right? Give up. So Spanish government eventually gave up USA area. Gave up the Florida area. So now the American government not only acquired the control of this Florida, but also now they acquired massive amount of territory along the Florida panhandle, Florida area. Okay, so I guess this is where we finished the last time. So we'll stop here and we'll continue our lesson next time. Okay, so you guys did a good job participating, and thank you for listening. Okay, so bye bye. Thank you everyone. Bye.